What if I told you that everything you've been trying to fix on the outside was never the problem to begin with? The truth is, everything you are, everything you think, everything you feel, it's all energy. Not metaphorically, literally. Your thoughts are electrical currents. Your emotions are magnetic pulses. And the way you're feeling right now, that's your vibration. That's your energy signature broadcasting out into the universe like a signal tower, attracting, repelling, or distorting everything around you. You've been taught to hustle harder, grind more, think your way through problems. But what if the most powerful changes in your life came not from pushing harder, but from shifting your energy? Because once you learn to control your energy with your consciousness, no fluff, no BS, everything changes. And I mean everything. You see, you're not just a body walking through space. You're an energetic being living inside a universe that responds to frequency. That's not spiritual poetry, that's quantum physics, that's ancient mysticism. That's the reality they never taught you in school. Take a moment and notice your breath. That subtle inhale and exhale. Even that is energy, life force, prana, chi. It's moving through you right now, animating your cells, feeding your brain, supporting the electrical field of your heart. Your entire body is an electromagnetic system, constantly sending and receiving energy. And the thoughts you think, they're the steering wheel of that system. Here's where it gets even more powerful. The moment you become conscious of the energy you're giving off, you stop reacting to life, and you start creating it. Let's break this down clearly. Every thought you think has a frequency. Every emotion you feel has a vibration. And when you merge thought and emotion, focus and feeling, you generate a field. That field interacts with everything around you. That's why people can feel your presence when you walk into a room. That's why your vibe attracts certain situations, certain people, and certain outcomes. Even if you're unaware of it, the question is, are you controlling that field? Or is it controlling you? Most people wake up in the morning and instantly tune into worry, stress, pressure. They check their phones, get hit with a dozen notifications, and within seconds their energy is already scattered. That scattered energy becomes their dominant signal. So what do they attract throughout the day? More distractions, more misalignment, more struggle. But you have the power to change this. You have the power to flip the entire system on its head. You don't need to meditate on a mountaintop for 10 years. You just need to reclaim your awareness and learn to guide it like a laser toward the state you want to live in. The secret? It's called superconscious flow, a state of effortless alignment where time distorts, ideas pour in, and your energy becomes a magnet for synchronicity. You've probably tasted it before, maybe during a run, a creative session, a deep conversation. That feeling where you're not even thinking, you're just being. Everything clicks. You're calm but energized, focused but relaxed, present yet powerful. That's not luck, that's not random. That's your natural state when the mind and energy body are aligned. Here's the science. When you enter flow, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that overthinks and overanalyzes, temporarily quiets down. At the same time, your brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, and anandamide. These chemicals increase pattern recognition, focus, and creativity. Your brain stops being a critic and starts becoming a channel. You stop fighting yourself, and you enter what the ancients called being in the Tao, in alignment with Source, or riding the wave. But here's the best part. You can train yourself to access this state on command. It starts by understanding energy, not as a concept, but as your moment-to-moment reality. When you wake up tomorrow, your first thought won't just be a thought. It will be a frequency. It will tune your entire field. So instead of waking up in default mode, anxiety, phone, comparison, you train yourself to wake up in designer mode. What does that mean? It means you set your frequency first. Before the world gets a grip on you, before your inbox, before your responsibilities. You get still, you breathe, you feel, you ask, what do I want to radiate today? And then you broadcast that energy not through words, but through intention. through feeling. Because once you learn that feeling is the frequency, you stop chasing results and you start embodying them. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how trying to manifest from a state of desperation never works? You can visualize all day, but if your body is broadcasting fear, the universe responds to that, not your vision board. That's the missing link. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about vibrating differently, and that requires energetic alignment, not mental effort. Alignment is when your thoughts, emotions, and body are all saying the same thing, when your intention isn't just in your head but in your cells, in your breath, in your posture, in your voice. That's when you become powerful. That's when reality starts to move. So ask yourself, right now, are you aligned? Are your thoughts leading your energy where you want to go, or are they leaking it? Because energy leaks are the silent killers of your power. Overthinking, self-doubt, scattered attention. These are not just mental habits, they are energetic disruptions. Every time you criticize yourself, your field gets distorted. Every time you ruminate on something that happened 5 years ago, you're losing energy to the past. Every time you worry about the future, you're bleeding energy into timelines that haven't even happened. That's why one of the most radical acts you can take is to become still. Stillness isn't passive, it's potent. When you enter stillness, you reclaim all the energy that's been leaking, you call it back, you refocus it, you become sovereign. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. Your consciousness rises. You tap into the superconscious, the intelligence beyond thought, the source of flow, creation, and clarity. And suddenly you're not just managing life, you're guiding it, not by control, but by coherence. When your energy becomes coherent, your reality does too. That's the secret nobody teaches. Most people are trying to fix their external world while remaining internally fragmented. They want clarity, but their mind is noisy. They want flow, but their body is tense. They want abundance, but their emotions are rooted in lack. And then they wonder why nothing sticks, why nothing lasts, why everything feels like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But once you bring your energy into coherence, it's like tuning an instrument. Everything starts to resonate in harmony. Your thoughts slow down, your breath deepens, your body softens, your awareness expands, and the world begins to respond to you differently. People look at you longer, opportunities flow more easily, synchronicities begin to stack. You become a different signal, and life can't help but respond. That's not magic, that's physics. Energy matches energy. Coherence attracts coherence. When your inner world becomes ordered, your outer world begins to reflect that order. It's not because you're working harder. It's because you're finally aligned. And here's something you need to hear. This isn't just for monks, mystics, or elite performers. This is your natural state. You were born to flow. You were born to channel consciousness. You were born to direct energy with intention, not be a victim of it. But somewhere along the line you forgot. You got conditioned, programmed, taught to override your intuition, suppress your feelings, and outsource your authority. They told you to obey, to be realistic, to shrink your life. But your energy never forgot. That deep pull you feel to something greater, that's not imagination, that's memory. That's your energy trying to return to its original blueprint, the one where you didn't second-guess yourself, the one where you trusted your instincts, the one where your presence alone shifted a room. And the way back? It's through mastery of attention. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows. You've heard it before, but now it has to land deeper. Attention is currency, and right now, someone is always trying to spend yours. Advertisers, algorithms, fear-based news cycles. And if you don't direct your attention consciously, the world will direct it for you. But once you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your power. This is where the game changes, because the more focused your attention becomes, the more condensed your energy becomes, and the more condensed your energy is, the more impact you have. That's when you become a creator. Not just someone reacting to life, but someone sculpting it with each breath, each thought, each intention. Let's get practical. If you want to begin mastering your energy today, it starts with 3 foundational practices: presence, breath, and inner dialogue. Simple, powerful, non-negotiable. Presence is your gateway, it's the door to superconsciousness. But presence doesn't mean sitting still in a quiet room. It means becoming fully aware of what you're doing right now, washing a dish, walking down the street, listening to this very sentence. Presence is total energetic participation. It's saying, I'm here, all of me. No multitasking, no mind wandering, just pure awareness. And in that awareness, something incredible happens. You begin to detach from the noise. You stop being the thoughts and start being the observer. And the observer? That's where all your power lives. Then comes the breath. Your breath is your most direct access point to your energy. Shallow breath, scattered energy. Deep rhythmic breath, centered, potent energy. The way you breathe tells your nervous system how to respond. Fast breath equals stress. Slow breath equals flow. When you consciously slow your breath, you shift your entire vibrational state. You downregulate anxiety. You calm the mind. You activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And you open the door to clarity. That's why breath work isn't optional, it's essential. It's the bridge between your body and your consciousness. And finally, there's your inner dialogue. The words you speak to yourself when no one's watching. Those whispers, they're frequencies. They're programming your energy field every second of every day. If your inner voice is filled with criticism, doubt, or fear, your energy gets fragmented. Your coherence breaks. But when your inner voice becomes empowering, encouraging, clear, your field stabilizes, your signal sharpens. You start to emit confidence rather than chase it. So ask yourself right now, what is your energy saying before you say a word? Because your energy introduces you before your name ever does. And the more conscious you become of that energy, the more intentional you can be in how you move through the world. Let's go even deeper. Have you ever felt drained after being around certain people, like your light was dimmed the moment they spoke? That's not in your head. That's energetic entanglement. Every interaction is an energy exchange. Some people feed you, some people drain you, and if you're not aware of your own frequency, you can end up absorbing energy that isn't even yours. That's why mastering your energy isn't just about feeling good, it's about protection, it's about clarity, it's about knowing what's you and what isn't. Because when you don't know, you'll internalize everything and wonder why you're exhausted, anxious, or confused. But when you do know, you become sovereign. You stop giving your energy away so freely. You stop leaking life force into people, places, and habits that don't honor who you are. You stop explaining your light to people who are committed to darkness. You start standing in your truth, energetically, emotionally, and spiritually. This is what real mastery looks like. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware. It's about choosing how you respond, choosing how you feel, choosing how you move. And here's where it all clicks. The moment you realize that you're not a slave to your state, but the one creating it. That's the shift. That's when you go from being a thinker to a transmitter, from overanalyzing to channeling, from surviving to flowing. And in that flow, you find something sacred, not just clarity or performance, but peace, deep, silent peace, the kind that comes from knowing that you are in alignment with the deepest part of yourself, the part that isn't trying, the part that simply is. And when you live from that space, life begins to rise up to meet you. When life begins rising to meet you, you stop chasing, you stop hustling, you stop grasping for things that were never meant to be forced. That's when the real magic unfolds. Not because you're doing more, but because you finally become a match for what you've been asking for all along. Think about it. How many times have you tried to force success, love, healing, thinking that if you just worked harder, pushed more, stayed up later, sacrificed your peace, you'd eventually earn it? But the truth is, energy doesn't respond to effort. It responds to frequency. And the fastest way to receive what you want is to become the version of you who already has it, not in your head, not on your vision board, but in your nervous system, in your breath, in your presence. Because your energy doesn't lie. You can say the affirmations, you can write the goals, but if your body is still wired for survival, if your heart is still clenched in doubt, if your energy is still tuned to fear, you'll repel what you're trying to attract. So the question becomes, how do you shift it? You start by making your inner world more real than your outer one. That means you don't wait for the money to feel abundant. You don't wait for the relationship to feel worthy. You don't wait for the breakthrough to feel free. You generate that frequency from within, and then let the outer world catch up. That's the essence of conscious energy control. It's knowing that your feelings are not reactions. They're generators. They are creative forces. When you learn to feel what you want before you see it, you collapse the time it takes to experience it. You literally bend reality to your vibration. It's not some mystical theory. It's the same principle behind every intuitive download, every inspired idea, every miraculous recovery. The shift happens when your internal state becomes stronger than the circumstances around you. When you stop reacting and start emitting. This is how flow begins. Not with effort, but with surrender. Not with control, but with coherence. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and energy are all moving in the same direction. It's when your body is no longer in a stress response. When your breath is slow, your heart is open, your mind is still, and you're not thinking about life. You're feeling it, living it, becoming it. That's when you access the superconscious. The field of infinite intelligence that exists beyond logic, beyond time, beyond linear thought. It's the place where genius lives, where music writes itself, where athletes move in slow motion, where entrepreneurs download million-dollar visions in seconds. It's not something outside of you, it's within you, and once you tap into it, you'll wonder how you ever operated without it. But let's go deeper. Because to truly live in this state, you must understand how your nervous system plays a role in your energy field. If your nervous system is dysregulated, if it's always bracing for impact, scanning for threats, reliving the past, it's nearly impossible to maintain high-frequency states. You might have moments of insight, moments of inspiration, but you'll keep getting pulled back into chaos, into old loops, into low vibration, so the real work becomes nervous system regulation. This is the foundation, this is the root. If your system doesn't feel safe, it will override your affirmations, it will ignore your visualizations, it will protect you from the very things you say you want, because it sees them as a threat to the current identity it's used to surviving in. Safety is the soil. Without it, your energy can't stabilize, your consciousness can't expand, and your flow will be fleeting. That's why healing is not optional, it's energetic hygiene. You don't heal just to feel better. You heal to hold more energy, more clarity, more presence, more flow. When you clear stored trauma, when you release suppressed emotion, when you learn to soothe your inner child, you stop leaking energy. You stop bracing for imaginary futures. You stop replaying old patterns that keep your frequency anchored to the past. And when you do that, something miraculous happens. Your baseline vibration rises, not because you forced it, but because you removed what was lowering it. This is what the ancient mystics meant when they talked about purification, not moral judgment, but energetic refinement, the process of removing density so light can move through you freely. And that light, it's your essence, it's your superconscious, it's the real you that never left. Now, as your energy becomes lighter, faster, clearer, you begin to notice something unusual. Time starts to feel different. Hours pass like minutes. Moments stretch out with vivid detail. You're no longer a prisoner of the clock. You're in the rhythm of life itself. This is temporal distortion. It's a hallmark of the superconscious state. It's what athletes call the zone, what artists call being in the groove, what monks call samadhi. It's all the same. You've transcended the survival self. You've stepped beyond identity, and now you're being moved not by effort but by energy. You're not chasing ideas, ideas are chasing you. You're not pushing, you're pulling reality into your field. And the more you trust this process, the more natural it becomes. But don't confuse natural with automatic, because living in this state requires care, discipline, integrity. Your energy must be cultivated, protected, and renewed daily. Just like a musician tunes their instrument, just like an athlete warms up before the game, your consciousness is your tool, and you must learn to master it. That means choosing your inputs carefully. The conversations you engage in, the media you consume, the environments you place your body in, everything is affecting your field, nothing is neutral. You are always being fed or drained. So start asking yourself moment to moment, does this elevate my energy or dilute it? And when you begin to answer that honestly, without guilt or explanation, your life will begin to simplify. The chaos will quiet, the distractions will fall away, and what will remain is clarity. Clarity is what you feel when your energy is aligned. It's not just mental, it's visceral. It's a knowing in your gut, a stillness in your heart, a resonance in your chest that says, yes, this is it. And when you live from that clarity, everything accelerates. Manifestations speed up. Decisions become effortless. Relationships deepen. Creativity explodes. Not because you're trying harder, but because you've stopped blocking the natural flow. You've become a clean channel, an open circuit, a grounded vessel for infinite power. And the best part, you realize it's been with you all along. It's been whispering to you in the quiet moments, guiding you through intuition, nudging you through dreams, calling you through moments of inspiration that felt too big to explain. That's your superconscious. It doesn't yell. It doesn't compete with the noise. It waits for your stillness. It waits for you to turn inward instead of outward. And the moment you do, it speaks. Not in words, but in knowing. You've felt it before, in those moments when everything just made sense. When you met someone and instantly felt like you'd known them forever. When you followed a hunch that made no logical sense, but led you to a miracle. When time stopped and something bigger moved through you. A rhythm, a flow, a force that didn't come from your mind but from something far deeper. That force is not outside of you, it's you. It's the you beneath the story, beneath the identity, beneath the trauma, beneath the fear. It's the version of you that isn't broken, isn't lost, isn't confused. Because it never was. And once you reconnect with that version, everything begins to change. Not just how you feel, but how reality responds to you. Because when you shift your energy, you shift your timeline. You shift the path you're walking. You shift who you meet, what you attract, and how the world meets you. You shift the entire probability field around you. Infinite versions of your life exist right now, but the one you experience is the one that matches your frequency. So if you want to change your life, you don't chase the outcome, you change the frequency. That's how you collapse timelines. That's how you quantum leap, not by force, but by frequency. And once you understand this, you stop trying to fix the mirror. You stop rearranging the reflections. You realize the mirror is just showing you the signal you're emitting. You change the signal and the reflection changes by itself. That's the level of mastery you came here to embody, not to manipulate the outside, but to align the inside. And that alignment, it's a practice, it's a daily devotion. It's not something you earn, it's something you return to. Every breath, every moment, every choice, you are always either remembering who you are or forgetting. And in that remembering, you begin to unlock a kind of presence that transcends the noise. You become unshakable, not because life stops being intense, but because your center stops being reactive. And from that center, you begin to live differently. You begin to act from clarity instead of urgency. You start creating from inspiration instead of desperation. You stop asking for permission and you start moving from truth. Your energy becomes your compass, your clarity becomes your strategy, and life begins to bend around your resonance. People feel it. They don't know what it is, but they feel different around you, lighter, calmer, more awake. Your presence becomes a permission slip for others to rise too. You don't need to convince anyone. You just be. And in your being, you broadcast something that can't be faked, something real, something rare, something magnetic. That's the power of embodied energy. You don't chase, you attract. You don't beg, you decide. You don't shrink, you expand. And when you expand, you give others the courage to do the same. But let's be honest, expansion doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like breaking, like unraveling, like chaos. That's because everything that's not aligned with your next level has to fall away. Old identities, old habits, old relationships, old beliefs. It can feel like loss, but it's really liberation. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. You're not falling apart, you're falling into place. And the only thing required of you in those moments is trust. Not blind faith, but embodied knowing. The kind of trust that says, even if I can't see the path, I can feel the pull. That's energy navigation, that's superconscious guidance, and it will never lead you wrong, even if it leads you through the fire. Because sometimes your energy has to be purified. Sometimes the clutter has to be burned away, not as punishment, but as preparation, because the life you asked for, the version of you you're becoming, can't be built on shaky foundations. So life will shake them, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you stronger, clearer, truer. And when you understand that, pain stops being the enemy, fear stops being the villain. They become portals, invitations, teachers, because every low frequency is just energy that forgot what it was. And your job isn't to reject it. Your job is to meet it with presence, with breath, with awareness. And in that meeting, it transforms. That's transmutation, that's the alchemy of consciousness, turning fear into fuel, doubt into direction, pain into power. You stop waiting for emotions to pass, and you start using them as tools. Every time you feel something heavy, you ask, what is this energy asking for? What belief is it showing me? What part of me is ready to evolve? And when you sit with those questions, not from the mind but from the heart, the answers reveal themselves, not always in words, sometimes in sensations, sometimes in sudden clarity, sometimes in silence. But the answers come, because the energy always knows the way. Your body knows, your breath knows, your heart knows. You just have to listen. And listening requires slowing down. It requires getting quiet enough to hear the signal beneath the noise. That's where your superconscious lives, not in the rush, not in the chaos, but in the space between, the gap, the pause, the stillness. That's where you access it, that's where you channel it, and once you do, you never move the same way again. You stop forcing, you start flowing, you stop reacting, you start responding, you stop doubting, you start knowing. And that knowing, it becomes your anchor. In every storm, in every challenge, in every season, you don't need to see the whole path anymore, you just need to feel the frequency, and if it's aligned, you move. If it's not, you wait. Not from fear, but from wisdom. Not from doubt, but from discernment. Because now, you understand energy. Now, you've become a master of your state. Now, you're not just surviving reality, you're shaping it. And that, right there, is your power. And your power doesn't scream, it doesn't beg to be seen, it simply exists. Calm, steady, undeniable. It radiates from the way you breathe, from the way you move through a room, from the way you say no without explanation and yes without hesitation. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop proving yourself. You stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never built to hold your frequency, because you finally realize energy never lies, and alignment never asks you to betray yourself. This is the point where you start living intentionally, not reactively. You don't just wake up and hope for a good day. You create it. You set the tone. You tune your energy like an instrument. You step into each moment already vibrating at the level you want your life to meet you at. And when it doesn't, you don't lower your frequency, you hold it, you anchor it. You let your energy teach the room how to rise. This is the difference between living by default and living by design. Most people wake up and hand their energy over to whatever happens next. a message, a comment, a memory, a mood. But you start choosing your state like you choose your clothes. You choose your inner world first. You choose the energy that leads, and everything else starts following. It's not magic, it's mastery. And what's wild is the more you commit to this way of living, the more obvious the old patterns become. You start to feel it instantly when your energy's off. You notice when you're leaking power through complaining, through comparison, through trying to be who you're not. You start pulling yourself back faster and faster, not because you're judging yourself, but because you're devoted to the feeling of alignment, because peace feels too good, because clarity is too precious, because you've tasted flow and nothing else compares. And as your awareness sharpens, you start realizing everything is a vibration. Every word, every song, every piece of content, every bite of food, every thought you think, every story you tell yourself when no one's watching, it's all carrying a frequency. And that frequency is either reinforcing your desired state or pulling you away from it. So you start to edit your inputs like your life depends on it, because it does. You become selective, not from fear but from power. You stop entertaining gossip. You stop consuming things that leave your nervous system fried. You stop repeating old narratives that keep your future stuck in the past. You start curating your life around one question: does this amplify my energy or diminish it? And when you live like that, you become unstoppable. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you stop wasting energy on things that never mattered. You conserve your power, you channel your focus, you become efficient with your life force, and that efficiency, it creates momentum. Momentum creates evidence. Evidence creates belief, and belief becomes embodiment. This is where manifestation stops being a wish and starts being a natural byproduct of your state. You're no longer trying to get what you want, you've become it. And because you've become it, it finds you, it mirrors you, it aligns with you. But here's something most people miss. When you reach this level of energetic clarity, you won't just attract things you want, you'll also trigger things that aren't aligned. People will project, some will fall away, situations will collapse. Don't mistake that for failure. It's refinement. It's the shedding of density. It's your vibration, tuning your life to match your truth. Because your truth doesn't need convincing. It doesn't need defending. It just needs space to breathe. And when you give it that space, when you give yourself permission to live as you truly are, unapologetically, unfiltered, uncaged, your energy becomes a lighthouse. You stop chasing the boats. You become the signal. You stop looking for the path. You become the way. And the more you lived this truth, the more you realized this was never about fixing yourself, it was about remembering yourself. You were never broken, you were blocked. You were never powerless, you were disconnected. You were never lost, you were just surrounded by noise that made you forget how powerful stillness could be. Now you remember. Now you remember how it feels to wake up and feel lit from within, to feel plugged into something bigger than your circumstances, to feel turned on to life, not because everything's perfect, but because your perception has changed. You see through the surface, you hear beyond the noise, you feel into the spaces other people overlook, you start to live on a different bandwidth. And that bandwidth, it's where solutions live, it's where creativity lives, it's where divine timing and alignment and synchronicity live. It's where the universe stops being theoretical and starts becoming experiential. You don't need to believe in the power of energy anymore. You feel it. You're living proof of it. You are the evidence. And the deeper you go, the more responsibility you begin to carry. Because when you know how powerful your energy is, you stop using your words recklessly. You stop speaking defeat over your life. You stop venting just to release pressure. You begin to speak with precision, with intention, with awareness of the ripple. You become mindful of your state, not to be rigid or robotic, but because you understand that your state is contagious. That when you walk into a room, your energy precedes you. It introduces you, it teaches without trying, it heals without forcing. And when you master your own frequency, you unconsciously invite others to rise into theirs. You become a portal, a frequency holder, a tuning fork for coherence, and that coherence, it starts creating its own field. People gravitate to it, life reorganizes around it. And you realize this is what leadership truly is. Not control, not authority, but energetic integrity. When your energy is congruent, your life is too. That doesn't mean it's perfect. It means it's aligned. It means your actions match your values. Your words match your heart. Your vision matches your vibration. And that kind of alignment, it's rare, it's powerful, it's magnetic. And it's available to you right now, not after another book, not after another certification, not after another 5 years of healing, right now. In this breath, in this body, in this moment, the energy is already here. The question is, are you ready to direct it? Because when you are, life meets you differently. Time bends, ideas flow, people show up, doors open, and the things you used to chase start chasing you. And when life starts chasing you, you don't run. You receive. You don't sabotage it, you allow it. You don't question whether you deserve it, you embody it. Because you've done the work. Not the outer grind, but the inner alignment. The work of unlearning, of remembering, of choosing your state moment by moment. You've made clarity your home. You've made peace your baseline. You've made coherence your compass. And from that place you begin to play with reality, not from arrogance but from understanding. You begin to experiment with energy like a sculptor experiments with clay. You speak what you want into the field. You feel it as if it's already real. You let your body become the blueprint. You tune your thoughts to match it. You walk like it's done. You move like it's yours. You rest like it's inevitable. And the universe responds. Not because you begged, not because you forced, but because you finally stopped sending mixed signals. You finally stopped saying you wanted peace while embodying chaos. You stopped saying you wanted love while vibrating in fear. You stopped saying you wanted abundance while clinging to lack. You cleaned the channel. You refined the signal. And life echoed back what you became. That's how it works. Always has. The field doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your frequency. And your frequency is shaped not by what you say, but by what you feel, what you focus on, what you expect, what you allow. That's what sends the message. That's what tells life what version of reality to deliver next. So what are you broadcasting right now? Not in theory, in truth. What are you expecting when you wake up in the morning? What are you assuming about the world, about people, about yourself? Because that expectation carries a charge. It's a signal. It's a vibration. And whether you realize it or not, you're living inside the feedback loop of your own energetic assumptions. But the beauty of it is this: you can change the signal anytime. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. You don't need to wait for your external circumstances to justify the shift. You just decide. You just breathe. You just choose to feel differently, even if the mind protests, even if the evidence isn't there yet. Because the evidence follows the energy, not the other way around. And when you truly get that, you stop waiting. You stop stalling your joy. You stop delaying your healing. You stop putting your expansion on hold until conditions are perfect. You realize that conditions are mirrors, not masters. And you reclaim your power to lead, with energy, with consciousness, with presence. Now something extraordinary starts to happen. You begin to feel calm in situations that used to trigger you. You begin to feel whole in places where you used to seek validation. You begin to feel powerful in moments that once made you shrink. That's not coincidence. That's coherence. That's the result of nervous system alignment and energetic sovereignty. You're no longer at war with your experience. You're in relationship with it. You meet fear like an old teacher. You meet doubt with curiosity instead of resistance. You meet challenge with breath, not panic. Because you know who you are. You've seen yourself clearly. You've met your own energy without distraction. And once you've done that, nothing outside of you can touch what you found inside. That's not spiritual fluff. That's grounded power. That's the stability that comes when your sense of self is no longer hooked to external approval, when your worth isn't hanging on outcomes, when your peace isn't at the mercy of circumstance. That's what happens when your energy becomes your anchor, when presence becomes your practice, when truth becomes your home. And from that place, life opens up in ways your logical mind couldn't even plan. The connections are deeper. The timing is uncanny. The opportunities feel tailor-made. And it's not luck. It's alignment. It's resonance. It's you moving through life as a coherent field of truth. That truth sends out a signal. That signal shapes your experience. And the best part? You don't need to prove any of this to anyone. You don't need to convince anyone of what you feel. Your energy becomes the proof. Your embodiment becomes the evidence. Your life becomes the testimony. And those who are meant to align with it will feel it instantly. Because resonance is louder than words. Because frequency doesn't lie. So you stop trying to fit in. You stop diluting your energy to be digestible. You stop minimizing your truth to make others comfortable. You realize your coherence is your contribution. Your alignment is your gift. Your authenticity is the activation others didn't even know they needed. And you give it without trying. Just by being. And when contrast shows up, because it always will, you don't collapse. You don't spiral. You meet it with awareness. You use it as feedback. You ask, what part of me is out of alignment? What's being mirrored here? What energy am I being invited to shift? And instead of reacting, you recalibrate. Instead of resisting, you realign. And instead of spiraling, you rise. That's the kind of power you carry now. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that transforms. The kind that holds space. The kind that doesn't need control because it trusts its own frequency. The kind that walks into a room and changes the temperature without saying a word. The kind that creates, not from force, but from flow. And flow isn't passive. Flow is precision. Flow is when every part of you is moving in the same direction, when your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your actions all say yes. That's what makes things effortless. Not because they're easy, but because you're no longer swimming against your own energy. You've become a unified field. You've become a clear channel. And now, life flows through you without obstruction. And once you live like that, you realize this is what you were always meant for. Not just survival, not just occasional peace, not just moments of inspiration surrounded by noise, but sustained clarity, deep presence, expansive alignment, a life that doesn't just look good but feels good, all the way to your bones. This is what happens when you master your energy. And once you've tasted that level of mastery, there's no going back. You can't unknow it. You can't unfeel it. You can't return to a life of reacting, doubting, or begging life to give you what you now know how to generate from within. You become the source. You realize you were never meant to chase alignment. You were meant to become it. You were never meant to search for power. You were meant to embody it. And the moment you do, you stop asking life to change. Because you've changed, and that changes everything. What once felt out of reach now flows toward you. What once triggered you now teaches you. What once drained you now reveals what no longer belongs in your field. You don't just attract better, you allow better. You receive differently. Because your energy has a new baseline, and anything that doesn't match that baseline can't stay. It will feel like dissonance, it will feel like static, and instead of clinging to it, trying to fix it, trying to justify it, you release it, not from judgment, but from resonance, not from bitterness, but from truth. Because when your energy is aligned, clarity becomes instant. You can feel what's for you and what's not without needing to rationalize it. You feel it in your nervous system, you feel it in your chest, you feel it in your breath. Truth speaks through sensation, through expansion or contraction, through ease or resistance. And you've trained yourself to listen, to trust what you feel more than what you've been taught to think. And that trust, that's your superpower now. That's the inner authority that no one can take from you. That's the signal that guides you through uncertainty like a compass that never lies. Even when the path looks unfamiliar, even when the steps don't make logical sense, you follow the frequency. Because you've learned that energy never deceives, it only reflects. So you let it reflect, you let life show you where you're still holding back, where you're still clinging to fear, where you're still outsourcing your truth. And instead of collapsing under that awareness, you rise through it. Because now you understand, awareness isn't judgment, it's liberation. It's your invitation to evolve. And so you do. Not because you're broken, not because you're trying to fix anything, but because you are devoted to becoming the clearest, highest expression of who you've always been. You're not performing anymore. You're not proving. You're not hustling for a worth that was never up for negotiation. You've reclaimed your energy. You've reclaimed your narrative. And now every action you take is coming from fullness, not emptiness. From alignment, not lack. That's when the momentum becomes undeniable. Your life starts moving faster, not chaotically but elegantly, like wind behind your back, like invisible hands clearing your path, like unseen forces conspiring in your favor because your frequency is finally a match for your destiny. That's what happens when the inside matches the outside. When your inner frequency and your outer action are in agreement, there's no more resistance, there's just rhythm. And in that rhythm you feel alive again. Not just functioning, but activated. Not just surviving, but lit up. Every cell in your body starts to vibrate with clarity. Your posture changes, your voice deepens, your gaze sharpens. Not with intensity, but with presence. With stillness, with depth. And people feel it. They don't know why, but they lean in. They trust you. They follow you. Not because you're loud, but because your energy is true. Because your field speaks what your words no longer have to. And the most beautiful part of all of it is that you no longer need to force anything. You don't hustle for alignment, you maintain it. You don't beg for validation, you radiate self-assurance. You don't try to be impressive. You live in such deep truth that you become irresistible. Not from ego, from coherence. Because coherence is rare, it's sacred, it's magnetic, and you've become it. Now, every day becomes a practice, a devotion, a living meditation where you're constantly choosing, moment to moment, the state you want to live in. You wake up, you breathe, and you decide. Who am I being today? What am I inviting into my field? And instead of drifting through the day unconsciously, you move with clarity, with purpose, with presence. And that presence changes everything. You begin to see things differently. People's energy becomes obvious. Their alignment or lack of it becomes transparent. You can read a room without effort. You can feel truth without words. And this is not about becoming superior. It's about becoming responsible. It's about understanding that your energy impacts more than just your life. It impacts the collective. It impacts the frequency of every space you enter. And because of that, you lead differently. You love differently. You create differently. Not because you have to, but because you can. You've become the eye of the storm, the calm in the chaos, the steady pulse in a world of noise. You hold frequency when others drop theirs. You remain grounded when the room spins. You hold your alignment even when the world wants you to forget it. And because of that, you become the reminder, the mirror, the medicine. You weren't meant to blend in, you weren't meant to dull your frequency, you weren't meant to live in constant fight or flight. You were designed to channel energy, to hold presence, to create reality through resonance. And now that you remember that, there is no limit to what you can do. You're not the same anymore. You've shifted, you've recalibrated, you've crossed an invisible threshold. And from here on out, everything you create will carry a different signature. Everything you touch will feel your frequency. Everything you speak will carry your vibration, because your energy is your essence, and you finally know how to control it, not to manipulate, but to align, not to dominate, but to flow, not to impress, but to express. You don't need to wait for the world to validate what you now know. You are the proof. You are the embodiment. You are the walking reminder that everything is energy, and when you learn to control it with consciousness, nothing is out of reach. And now that you know this, you can never again pretend to be powerless. You can't go back to blaming luck or timing or circumstance. You've seen too much. You've felt the truth in your bones. You've experienced what happens when your energy is clean, when your mind is still, when your breath is conscious, and your actions are led from alignment. That's not a high you chase. That's a home you return to. That's your real state. That's where you were always meant to live. Not in anxiety, not in survival, not in the loop of proving and pleasing and performing. You were meant to live in resonance, in flow, in presence. You were meant to feel calm in your body and clear in your mind. You were meant to wake up excited, to create from inspiration, to speak from truth, to love from fullness. That is not a fantasy. That is not a reward for perfection. That is your default setting, once you remove what's blocking it. And most of what blocks it isn't outside of you, it's the beliefs you carry, the stories you inherited, the habits you unconsciously repeat. It's the way you've trained your nervous system to expect chaos. It's the way you've normalized being overwhelmed, the way you've convinced yourself that peace is boring, that stillness is lazy, that ease must mean something is wrong. But none of that is truth. That's programming. That's conditioning, that's survival masquerading as personality. But now you're waking up from all of that. You're beginning to feel what life is like without the static, without the noise, without the tension. You're not chasing success, you're embodying it. You're not trying to heal, you're living healed. You're not asking for permission. You're moving from conviction, and that shift, it changes everything. You no longer look for signs, you become the sign. You no longer search for answers, you become the space where answers arrive. You no longer fight for alignment, you are the alignment. That's what happens when you take radical ownership of your energy. You stop being a visitor in your own body, you start living there, grounded, present, awake, alive. And from that place your desires become different. You're no longer impressed by noise. You crave depth. You crave connection that doesn't drain your frequency. You crave spaces that honor your silence. You crave a life that's not full of things, but full of energy. Full of moments that feel like truth. Full of alignment that doesn't need an audience. Because now, alignment is the prize. Peace is the flex. Clarity is the status symbol. You don't need the illusion anymore. You've touched something real. Something sacred, something sustainable, and now you protect it like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. So you become intentional with your time, with your attention, with your thoughts. You stop engaging with things that pull you out of your body. You stop explaining your value to people who can't recognize their own. You stop negotiating your frequency just to feel accepted. You walk in your energy like it's armor. And that armor isn't heavy, it's light, it's clear, it's magnetic. It's unshakable, because it's true. And from that truth, you build. You build habits that support your energy. You build systems that respect your rhythm. You build relationships that reflect your evolution. You build a life that doesn't just look good on paper. It feels right in your spirit. And that feeling, that deep yes in your body, that's your measure of success. That's your roadmap. Because energy doesn't lie. You can fake the smile, you can say the right words, you can follow the rules, but your energy always tells the truth. And now that you're tuned into that truth, you can feel when something's off, even if you can't explain it, and you don't need to explain it anymore. You honor what you feel, you trust the knowing. You don't need evidence before you move. You move and the evidence catches up. That's embodiment. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you untouchable, not because you're untouchable by pain, but because you're no longer defined by it. You're no longer living from old wounds, old fears, old codes. You've updated your frequency. You've shifted your identity. You've stopped asking who you need to become, and you've started asking, who do I need to remember that I already am? Because this has always been a return to coherence, a return to sovereignty, a return to presence, a return to the sacred truth that everything is energy and you are its master, not its victim, not its servant, its master. And mastery doesn't mean control, it means awareness, it means harmony, it means presence. So steady that even chaos bows before it. So breathe, feel that, let that settle in your system. You're not chasing healing anymore, you're stabilizing it. You're not chasing flow anymore, you are the flow. You're not waiting for something to shift, you are the shift. The way you move, the way you speak, the way you hold space even in silence, it all carries frequency now. You've become intentional, you've become electric, you've become magnetic, and your life reflects that back to you moment after moment. This is who you've always been. Not someone small, not someone uncertain, not someone lost. You've always been energy in form, consciousness in motion, a fractal of the divine learning how to remember itself. And now that you've remembered, you're unstoppable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're aligned. Not because you never doubt, but because you know how to return. Not because life won't test you, but because you no longer abandon yourself when it does. You meet life in your power, you meet challenge with your presence, you meet opportunity with your clarity, and in every situation you lead with energy first. Not performance, not people-pleasing, not force. Energy first, alignment first, truth first. And from that frequency, you create a life that doesn't just check boxes, it changes worlds. And yes, it really can be this simple. Not always easy, but simple. Because the most powerful truths are, everything is energy, and energy responds to clarity, to presence, to direction. You don't need to shout into the universe. You just need to know who you are, feel what you want, and hold the frequency of it long enough for life to catch up. Because life will catch up, it always does. It follows the rhythm of your being, not your panic. It aligns with your expectation, not your doubt. So the real work isn't forcing outcomes. The real work is regulating your energy so precisely that you become unfazed by delay, untouched by distraction, unbothered by noise. You trust the unfolding, you trust your signal, you trust the resonance you're creating with every breath, every thought, every small decision that no one sees. That trust becomes your power. It becomes your calm in the unknown, your anchor in transition, your peace when nothing around you makes sense. Because you've felt what happens when you align. You've watched the signs increase, the effort decrease, and the results amplify when you finally stop chasing and just become the vibration. And the deeper you go, the more you realize this isn't about spiritual theatrics. It's not about chanting under a full moon or needing to know the names of every chakra. It's about alignment. It's about embodiment. It's about the feeling of truth. And that truth, it doesn't always sound like what you've been taught. It sounds like resonance, like warmth, like home, like something inside you saying, yes, this is it. You begin to notice what no longer fits, the words that feel hollow, the choices that once felt safe but now feel small, the goals you used to chase that now feel disconnected from your truth. You no longer want to look successful. You want to feel free. You want to feel real. You want to feel alive, not in fleeting moments, but as a new way of being. And so you release the things that weigh you down, not out of fear, but from clarity. You say no without guilt. You say yes without hesitation. You allow endings not because they're easy, but because you trust that nothing aligned will ever require you to betray your energy. You stop trying to make things fit that don't. You stop playing roles that drain you, because the cost of misalignment is too high now. Your peace is too valuable, your energy is too sacred, your life is too short. And once you move this way, something in you clicks. You don't need to be convinced of your worth. You don't need to be reminded of your power. You feel it. You live it. You breathe it. You carry it into every room, into every decision, into every interaction. Not from ego, from embodiment. Because when you embody your truth, you don't have to speak it. People feel it. And it's felt not through volume, but through vibration. The way your eyes soften, the way your presence holds space, the way your silence speaks louder than empty words. the way you walk away from chaos without needing to announce your peace. That's real alignment. That's energy integrity. That's what changes lives, not just yours but everyone around you. You begin to lead by example, not because you're trying to lead, but because you've become someone worth following, not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned how to ask the right questions, not because you've never fallen, but because you know how to rise without drama, without story, without shame. Your life becomes your message, not curated, not forced, but authentic. And that authenticity, that frequency of truth, it becomes your signature, your legacy, your ripple. And the best part is, you didn't have to become anyone else to get here. You just had to remove what was never yours to begin with, the conditioning, the doubt, the noise. Now you walk lighter, think clearer, love deeper, create freer, because your energy isn't locked in the past. It's not frozen in a future that hasn't arrived. It's here, in this breath, in this body, in this moment. And that presence, that's where your true power lives. You become aware of how energy moves through your day. You notice when your breath gets shallow, when your shoulders tense, when your thoughts spiral, and instead of spiraling with them, you pause, you breathe, you return, because now you know. Mastery isn't perfection, it's repetition, it's remembering, it's realignment. And every time you realign, you get faster, more precise, more fluid. What used to take months now takes minutes. What used to feel impossible now feels inevitable. Because you're no longer arguing with the process. You're not resisting the flow. You're not second-guessing the pull. You're tuned in, turned on, aligned. And in that state, life becomes a mirror. It reflects your wholeness. It responds to your resonance. It shows you what you've become, not what you've been through. And every reflection becomes a confirmation, a message, a reminder. Yes, this is working. Yes, you're shifting. Yes, this is real. So you keep going. Not from desperation, but from devotion. Not because you're chasing the next breakthrough, but because you've fallen in love with the state itself, with the clarity, with the stillness, with the flow, with the way it feels to move through life clean, clear, and fully conscious of the energy you carry. And that's the real reward. Not the thing you manifest, but who you become in the process. Not the vision board goal, but the version of you that finally shows up to claim it. Because you've stopped wishing, you've stopped waiting, you've stopped hoping someone else would give you the green light. You've realized the power's been yours the whole time. And from this moment on, you hold it like you've never held it before, not with tension, with ease, not with pressure, with presence, not with fear, with full permission to be all that you are. Because you finally remember, everything is energy, and you are the one who gets to choose how it moves through you, how it expresses through you, how it transforms the world through you. And that choice, that's your freedom. And once you realize that freedom has been within you all along, you stop looking outside yourself for it. You stop waiting for the world to change so you can feel safe. You stop putting your joy on hold until something external gives you permission to feel it. Because you know now, your energy sets the tone. Your consciousness shapes the room. Your frequency is the blueprint for everything that comes next. You begin to walk through life differently. Not above it, not apart from it, but in deep harmony with it. You understand the seasons, you flow with the changes. You embrace the unknown not as a threat, but as a creative canvas. You welcome contrast because you've seen what it reveals. You trust resistance because you know it points to where you've outgrown. You honor endings because you know they're clearing space for expansion. Nothing is wasted anymore. Every moment becomes usable. Every emotion becomes intelligent. Every experience becomes a tool for alignment. And you begin to realize the highest version of you was never out there waiting. It's not something you find. It's something you uncover. It's what remains. Once you remove the static, the stories, the shame, it's the version of you that doesn't chase light because it is the light. It doesn't seek power because it's remembered that power is presence. Power is peace. Power is that quiet, unwavering yes in your chest when the rest of the world is screaming no. That version of you, it's awake now and it's not going back to sleep. You're seeing life through new eyes, hearing it through new ears, feeling it with a nervous system that isn't in survival anymore. And because of that, you're no longer addicted to drama. You're no longer magnetized to the noise. You crave calm, you crave quiet, you crave depth, and more than anything, you crave authenticity. The real kind, the raw kind, the energy that doesn't pretend, that doesn't hide, that doesn't dilute itself to make other people comfortable. Because you've done that before. You've lowered your volume, you've played small to avoid judgment, you've traded your frequency for belonging, and it worked for a while, until it didn't. Until your soul started knocking louder than the fear, until your body started speaking through tension, through exhaustion, through restlessness. And now you're done pretending not to know who you are. You're done acting like your energy isn't powerful. You're done making yourself palatable to people who haven't yet met themselves. You're not here to be digestible, you're here to be undeniable. And that means honoring your own rhythm. That means creating from overflow, not obligation. That means protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. That means being okay with not being for everyone, because you were never meant to be. Your energy isn't for mass approval. It's for those who are ready. It's for those who can feel you without needing you to explain. It's for those who recognize something in you that reminds them of something in themselves. And the more you live this way, the more effortless everything becomes. You stop trying to figure it all out. You realize the path reveals itself with every aligned step. You don't need a 5-year plan when you're fully present for the next breath. You don't need to overthink when you've learned to feel what's true. You don't need to rush when you've embodied the truth that nothing real can pass you by. You begin to trust that your energy is the plan, your alignment is the strategy, your presence is the magnet. And from that place, miracles aren't rare. They're the natural outcome of an aligned field. Synchronicity becomes normal. Support arrives without effort. Doors open not because you kicked them down, but because your frequency knocked first. You begin to expect good. You begin to expect flow. You begin to expect that the universe meets you exactly where you are, so long as where you are is true. You don't manifest by needing, you manifest by knowing. By trusting the vibration before the result. By choosing the feeling over the fantasy. By realizing that your job isn't to control timing, it's to maintain coherence. And as you hold that coherence, everything around you begins to shift. People respond differently. Time stretches, ideas land, your body heals, your intuition sharpens, your relationships deepen. Not because you forced any of it, but because you aligned your energy and let life meet you there. That's mastery, not of others, not of circumstances, but of your state, your breath, your nervous system, your presence. The ability to hold your frequency when nothing around you validates it. The discipline to choose clarity when confusion would be easier. The power to stay grounded when everything around you wants to pull you out of yourself. And you hold it, you hold the frequency, you hold the alignment, you hold the vision, not with tension, but with devotion. And in doing so, you become the evidence that this path works, that this life is real, that energy is everything. And when you master it, you don't just change your mood, you change your reality. So breathe that in. Feel it in your chest. You've made it here. You've remembered, you've reclaimed, you've rewired, and now you live differently. You move differently. You create differently. Not because you've been given something new, but because you've activated what was always inside of you. This is your superpower, this is your reset point, this is your home frequency, and now that you've found it, you'll never lose it again, because everything is energy, and you finally know how to control it.